These are my predictions for the 2023 season, and specifically drivers' standings, or the championship standings, whatever you call it. We're just going to get straight into it because there is no stalling for this. I do think the Williams car is going to be better. So at P20, I do have Logan Sargent. Obviously, the Williams car is going to get worse. I think Logan is a rookie, so he won't have it over Alex Albon to actually take P19 because, surprise, surprise, I got Alex at P19. But I'm going to talk about them both because I think both might go scoreless in the year. It really depends on where that Williams car is, and I don't believe it's going to be anywhere good. A recent article actually just came out about Albon talking about that the 2022 car could have been a lot better if they found the right balance. I mean, there was no balance in that car. So the argument could be made, sure, maybe it could have been a little bit better, but I mean, I guess you can say that for the other Williams cars that they had, and those performed absolutely nowhere. But George Russell did score points in that 2020 Williams, so I gotta think to myself, there is a possibility of them scoring points, but they will be last on the grid. And at P20 and P19, I got Alex and Sargent because of that reason that Williams will be behind. Not because I think they're bad drivers, but because I think Williams will be far behind. At P18, I got Yuki Tsunoda. Yes, this might come as a shock to a lot of people. I like Yuki. Yuki is, I think, a talented driver, but I think he just makes too many mistakes. And sure, he's only been in the sport for 2 years, but he made more mistakes than, or just as many as Mick did last year, but he's still in the sport. So they're about the same driver in my opinion. I think even Mick had a little bit more talent than Yuki. Yeah, whatever. I definitely think that Mick actually had a lot more talent than Yuki. Yuki still has a lot to prove, in my opinion. There haven't been these like standout moments, but he hasn't been in a standout car, just like Mick wasn't either. And I think that AlphaTauri is going to suck and be comfortably P9, only Williams being worse than them. While saying that, yet again, I have another driver pairing, 2 in a row, Nick DeVries at number 17, who I think will have the best rookie season out of the 3 rookies we have, but that doesn't mean that the car is going to be good. I think that the car will be behind, and P9 and P10 will be far from the rest of the grid. By far, I mean like they can still compete probably with maybe like a P8, P7 constructors, but barely. They will not be good this year, and I fully believe that AlphaTauri and Williams are those teams that haven't really nailed the 2022 regulations, and I just think 2023 won't be good. I also believe that AlphaTauri and Williams are the worst driver pairings on the grid, so that doesn't help them. P16, I got somebody that I said had an amazing 2022 season, and I got Guan Yu Zhou. I believe Guan Yu will do good in 2023, but he's got a lot to prove, I think, this year in comparison to last year. I think he had nothing to lose last year. This year, he put on like a great performance in 2022, and if the reliability was better, we would have seen an even better performance out of Zhou. But now in 2023, pressure is on. He's got to perform. He's got to be in tip-top shape against Bottas, who will now be settled in. He's like his second year with this team. He's getting off a contract after this year, so we know that Bottas is going to be putting in the miles in the beginning and really trying to run that car all the way. He talks about wanting to link up with Audi and so on. So I do believe Bottas will be Zhou yet again. Not like he did in 2022, though. I also think that Alpha car will be far off the pace. At P15, here comes one of my big shockers for the beginning. I'm putting Kevin Magnussen. Yes, I think K-Mag will have a worse year than Nico Hülkenberg, and a worse year in general than he did in 2022. I think 2022 was great, and I think Kevin is an amazing driver. I mean, the dude put it on pole in a Haas. Tells you something. He got P3 in his first ever race. K-Mag is a talent like no other, and I do believe that he belongs in the sport, but I fully believe that the guy should be driving a car way better than what he's driving right now. And sure, he did drive the McLaren and he drove the Renault and he didn't really perform like how he needed to in either car, but I think this guy's talented. Just too many mistakes, man. The same thing with Yuki Tsunoda. There's too many mistakes going on. He makes these like stupid errors that really cost him at the end. So like all the meatball flags that guy was getting, like they were just unnecessary movements that he was making. It wasn't the opposition, but it's him being overly aggressive for no apparent reason. That's what I believe on K-Mag, honestly. I do believe he's a great driver, though. So, yeah, I'm putting K-Mag at P15. Yes. Okay, we finally don't have 2 drivers in a row, just like Zhou and Kevin Magnussen was, but I have Valtteri Bottas at P14. Now, from P14 to P1, I think these drivers, it's going to get progressively closer and closer and closer. I do think there will be a divide between P20 and P15. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that that's how the driver standing is going to look like. So at P14, Valtteri Bottas, that Alpha car will not be good, but Bottas will drive great. And I think he will be a lot more consistent than he was last year. I think we're going to see a Bottas kind of like in the Williams, the one that got him to see in Mercedes. He's got pressure on him, but it's good pressure. I think Alpha knows how to perform with Bottas, and I think that they believe in him as a driver enough to keep them for another year if he performs well in 2023. And I think Bottas will have a good 2023, kind of like how the beginning of 2022 started, but throughout the whole year. P13, I got another shocker. I have Nico Hülkenberg at P13. Obviously, he's above K-Mag, but he's also above Bottas, which I think many people won't agree. I think the Haas car will be better than in 2022. I think that they can maybe, and this is a big maybe, it will be between Alpha and Haas on who gets that P7 spot, but I believe Haas will go up to P7. Yes, they finished P8, which isn't great last year, but it's better than a P10 and getting no points. They will be P7. I think this MoneyGram sponsor will help them. I think they're a team that has never had enough money to actually fully develop their car throughout the whole entire year. Now that they'll be hitting the budget cap, I think that's a big deal for them, and I think it will be one of those years where Haas finally can upgrade their car properly. I have a little bit of a belief, and I hope it happens. I like Haas. I don't like Gunther, but I like Haas, and I like Nico Hülkenberg, and I really hope he gets a podium this year. That'd be crazy. I don't believe it will happen, but I do believe there will be a couple of P5s, maybe a P6. I don't know, something like that. I think he's going to be fighting in the midfield a good amount of time. But I think that Bottas and Hulk are both very non-aggressive drivers. So they're weird the way that they both perform. They perform really well in qualifying and kind of just fall back down in the grid. They're those types of drivers, in my opinion. The guys that qualify as high as possible, but fall back because their aggressiveness isn't as high as it should be like other drivers on the grid. At P12, and yes, I do have him here, it's Oscar Piastri. Yeah, I do believe that this McLaren car will be worse in 2023. I made a video about it, and I do believe that McLaren won't be as good as people might think they might be in this upcoming regulation. I think that they're going to stick around P4 to P6 in the constructors, as well as their drivers sticking between that P12 to P7. They will not make it to the top 3 or fight with the top 3. I don't believe that they have it in them to do it. Their cars have consistently always had something wrong with them, whether that be from Lando's side or from Ricciardo's side or from Carlos Sainz's side or from Fernando's side. They consistently have problems. Something doesn't make me believe in this project. McLaren was one of my favorite teams watching Formula One, and I feel like they fail me every year that I watch them and hope that there is some turnaround in that car. But that car, year in and year out, is hard to drive. And I don't think I think what Ricciardo said about Oscar coming into McLaren is actually pretty true. The ignorance is bliss. Because he doesn't have necessarily all the time in the world in any other Formula One cars, so he can really match up to how this car's going to perform. So he will adapt to the car, but the car just isn't strong enough for. And Oscar Piastri is an aggressive driver. Now Lando is too, but Lando has learned how to drive with that car. That's all that he's been driving. Same thing with Oscar. This will be the only car that he has driven, but Lando struggled a lot in his first year. Let's not get it twisted. He was close to Carlos, but they both struggled a lot in their first years. So I think Oscar will struggle as well in this car and will have a hard time performing, honestly, throughout the whole season. At P11, I have Esteban Ocon. So, yeah, it's a little controversial, but I think that the Alpine will also not be as great as they started the 2022 season. They will The midfield will be extremely tight, and already, as you can see, McLaren, Aston Martin, and Alpine are the three teams that I think will be extremely close this year. And I mean by tenths, just barely passing. They're going to go on and off about who is the best. But I do believe that Alpine will get fifth in the Constructors. They will be close, but Ocon will be the worst out of Gasly and himself, out of that teammate pairing. At P10, I have, who has never, by the way, never in his career, even in that Racing Point, been at least 10th in the championship. I do have Lance Stroll. Now, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate in the comments for this. Oh, bias, he's wearing the Aston Martin shirt. You're damn right, I am biased. But I also have a lot of belief, and I think that he is a better driver than he used to be. I think that he proved that in 2022. As much as people don't want to talk about it, he had a lot of really good drives. A lot. They're not like 3 or 4 performances and he just falls off a cliff every other race. He was there with Vettel, I would say, in 90% of the races. As much of a Vettel fan as I am, Lance competed with him day in and day out. He didn't have the exact same pace and race, for sure. He had awesome starts, just like Vettel. I mean, the Aston Martin boys were the best starters in the whole entire grid. I don't care what anybody says, it's the truth. And I think it's going to happen again with Fernando and Lance. They will be the best starters on the grid. But the car was behind for a lot of the season, and Lance couldn't really show his worth up until the car got a little bit better. And when it got better, he showed his worth. So Lance Stroll and P10, fight me on it. P9, I have Pierre Gasly, who will have the better season over Esteban Ocon. Fully believe this. Pierre Gasly is better. Fight me on this as well. Gasly is the better driver, and we'll show why he is the better driver over Ocon. I think they're close. Don't get me wrong. I think that they're close. If they were overalls, Pierre would be like an 87, he'd be an 85. But Pierre is better. Pierre is better, and I think that he's proven it in his career that he has more potential than Ocon ever did in his career. Not bashing on Ocon, just saying Gasly is the better driver. We have the P8 and the P7. So I think only 2 drivers can really compete for this. We know that the top 3 teams are pretty far away from everybody else, but at P8 I got Lando Norris. Yep, I put Lando Norris at P8, cutting it close to P7, but not being best for us because the car will be behind, but he will still outperform it. Just like he did in 2022, he will do the same in 2023. I have full belief in Lando, and I think by the end of 2023, he is leaving. Regardless of the contract, I fully believe he's leaving, and it will be because the car is behind and they aren't to pace like how they want it to be, and the performance won't be there as much as they want it to. I fully believe Lando at P8. At P7, yes, I have the old man, but the best driver of almost all time. One of my favorites, Fernando Alonso. And sure, he is in an Aston Martin car. I'm wearing an Aston Martin shirt, but I will give you my take as to why I think he will be P7. I think Aston Martin will have the biggest redemption season out of any team there. I believe in the project more than I believe in the Alpine or the McLaren project. Fully for the reasons that I stated with McLaren, is the same thing for Alpine. It's a team that everybody kind of believes will jump up in the year, and they just don't do it. McLaren is the same deal. They just kind of struggle at making their way towards the top. They were never close to the top. It doesn't ever feel like those two cars were ever close. At the beginning of the year, that Alpine looked like very, very competitive with all the rest of the cars, and rightfully so. Fernando was going on to an amazing lap in Australia till the hydraulics failed. So they can make a great car, but I think the reliability will kill Alpine. I think McLaren will just be slow and draggy, and I think Aston Martin will come out the best out of these teams, and Fernando will take everything out of the car. Just like he did with that Alpine, exact same thing. He will take everything out of the car, just like he did with the Ferraris, just like he did with the McLarens. It does not matter what car you give this guy, he will push the car to its hardest, and the reliability is great. So P7 for Fernando Alonso, I believe it. And I believe Aston Martin will be the team that really tops it out when it comes to those midfield teams. Now going from P6 to P1, we know that these are going to be the top 3 teams. So we know it will be close. But at P6, who I think will be a little bit off the pace of everybody else from P5 to P1 is Sergio Perez. And that Red Bull car won't be 3rd in the constructors, definitely, but Sergio Perez lacks pace. And I like Sergio, I really do, but I think he proved to me in 2022 that he just isn't built to race against somebody like Max Verstappen, and that car just doesn't suit his style. Like, clearly, the beginning of the season didn't suit Max's style, and he still competed with Sergio all the time on a car that Max didn't even really like and Sergio really liked. So the pace for Sergio it's just off. I don't think that he has, honestly, the talent to keep up with the other 5 drivers that I'm going to talk about. So Perez at 6th. At 5th, I got Carlos Sainz, who I debated having him above Charles, but I didn't want to put it because I don't think he's ready just yet. I think Charles is going to put in a really good 2023. Now, I do think the car will not be at the top, and I think the Mercedes and Red Bull are going to be the faster cars. But I think Carlos will have a good year, consistent year, kind of like something he had in 2021. P4, I have George Russell. And yes, these are all interchanging. That is how I think it will be. I think genuinely the top 3 teams will be all extremely close, going on and off about who is a better team on different racetracks. But I think that George Russell will be 4th. He will have a good season, yet again a consistent one. I think him and Carlos will have very similar years. But from P3 to P1, of course, we have the 3 maestros that I think are the best drivers in probably the grid right now with Fernando. Yep, I believe it. But at P3, I have Charles Leclerc. And yes, I think the Ferrari is going to fall off, and that will be Leclerc's demise. But after the 2022 season and kind of dealing with some pressure that kind of came with the Ferrari being Ferrari and making those mistakes, I think he's going to drive with absolutely no pressure in 2023. And I think he will pick up a couple of race wins here and there, which are going to be insanely impressive performances. He's probably going to be an insane qualifier, just like he was last year. But I just don't believe that Ferrari car will be fast enough to actually compete with Max and Lewis himself. Now at P2 and P1, okay, obviously we got the 2 guys that fought it out in 2021. And at P2, I have the 2-time champion, Max Verstappen. I don't believe he is winning in 2023. I made a video about why I think Mercedes will be the best team. And Red Bull is an amazing team. I fully believe in Red Bull to back Max Verstappen, but I just think Lewis will be so hard to beat in 2023. It's just giving me this feeling. These are predictions, so I could be completely wrong. But I'm usually pretty good at predictions. Let's see how that ends up correlating by the end of 2023. But like I said, something gives me this vision that Lewis will be better than Max in 2023. And I just think that he's just not going to give Max any room to breathe at all throughout the whole entire year. Well, I think it's going to be a very close battle. I think that Mercedes car will be better. They did something wrong clearly in 2022, but made the best development. I'm sticking with Mercedes, and I'm sticking with them being P1. And I think Lewis will really show off why he's the champion and retire by the end of 2023. I think he'll win the championship and retire. I think that will be the story that he wants to end off as Lewis Hamilton, one of the best drivers ever on the planet, if not the best. And I think 2023 will be that season with an insane battle with Max. I think 2023 will be, now that my predictions are over, I just want to talk about how excited I am for 2023. We're so close. In about a month, we're going to be getting the car liveries, which I'm so hyped to actually be having on the channel and making. I'm super excited to see what this year brings. I think it will be one of the best years we have in racing in a long time. I think it's going to be like a 2012 with 3 teams at the very top, with the midfield coming close and actually getting some snatched up podiums like in 2021. I think we're going to get an outstanding year. These regulations did their job in 2022. Now that the cars will be even closer, I believe it's going to happen. I really do believe it's going to be a great year and Lewis Hamilton will come out on top. But let me know your predictions down below, please. I want to hear what you guys say, and they could be completely different than mine. I just want to hear it. I want to hear it. Let's have a debate. Let's talk about it. It'll be interesting to see everybody's perspective on who will be better and who will be worse. So I will do my constructors in a different type of style of format. I'm doing my drivers. The constructors will be formatted completely differently in separate videos. But please leave a like. It would mean the world. Subscribe. It would mean the world. And peace.